All right, welcome everyone to our Tuesday night newcomers call with David Brown. So the third Tuesday of every month, David joins us and we go and we do a welcomes call for all of our newcomers, but also our existing distributors, where David goes over the company history and some of the product information. So we appreciate you guys joining tonight, and I am going to turn the call over to David so we can jump into this. So David, the time is yours.
Thanks, Angie, and welcome everyone. It's great to have you. As some of you heard, I'm actually originating this call from Trish and Eric Albrechtson's house in Queen Creek, Arizona. I've been here in the Phoenix and Tucson area for the past couple of days, holding some meetings and meeting some people that we've been introduced to. In fact, I'll refer to that a little bit tonight. It's been quite a whirlwind trip. Compliments of one Coco Gonzalez, who's just joined us and is listening to me now. But maybe not listening, so I should talk a lot about her while she's not listening to us. But just to reiterate a couple of things that Angie said, would love to have you on camera, but if you don't want to, that's fine. And there is no truth to the rumor that I asked Aaron Kosmetz not to go on camera. We want him if he wants to, so he hasn't been barred from camera work. And also, I know Kathleen has been a little worried about whether Stu was too hard on me in giving me a hard time, and whether that's the real reason he's not with us. Yes, Stu's on timeout until he can be a little bit better on these calls. No, I'm just kidding. But she asked me about that the other day in terms of what's with you and Stu. And I said, well, Stu and I go back a long way. And we've traveled the globe together and been through a lot of interesting things. And so he really is, well, as you can see, we bear a close family resemblance. We really are just like brothers. And well, okay, we don't bear that close of a family resemblance, but we have a lot in common. And he knows that I can give it as well as I can take it. And so that's the basis of a good relationship. So anyway, it's great. Well, it's great to have you here. As I mentioned, I've been in Phoenix and Tucson, and I've had a lot of opportunities to do what many of you have done, and either on the giving or the receiving end, and that's hear about or talk about actives for the first time. I've been able to tell a little bit about the history, why we're doing this, what we're all about, what's different about us, and explaining over and over again what epigenetics means. And when we say that we are the world's leader in epigenetic health and wellness products, what do we mean by that? Well, let's take a step back for a minute. And some of you know that we started the company about 4.5 years ago, and we got a great group of people together. Now, I think it's appropriate to deviate from that story just a little bit, to go even further back in time to 2009, when I met the owner of this house for the first time, one of the owners, Eric Albrechtsson. And he had driven over from Phoenix to San Diego to meet me where I was living at the time, and to discuss joining the company that I was the CEO at the time. And he and Trish had just had a kind of a roller coaster ride, along with a lot of other people, with a previous company that they had helped found and had tremendous success and had grown very quickly. And then just like that, the rug was pulled out from underneath them, because the person who was the financial backing for that company ended up just being not a very good person. Was actually stealing money from distributor pools and directing it to himself, and being overtly dishonest with his distributor force. And so they all walked out, and they walked away from big checks. And when I met Eric for the first time, he was not a happy camper. Some of you have seen Eric Albrechtsson, and you might think, that guy's always happy. You know, despite some of the challenges that he's faced, he puts a happy, smiling face on everything, and he's just a very positive guy. Well, I can tell you, the first time I met Eric Albrechtsson, he was not a happy guy. He had been coerced into coming over to meet with me to talk about a company he didn't really want to hear about, an opportunity he really didn't think that he wanted, and now he was stuck in front of somebody he didn't know. Does that sound like some of you? Maybe you felt like when your first introduction to this company was a little coercive. Wasn't sure if it was really for you. You were doing it to kind of get somebody off your back, and at least maybe you really weren't 100% sold, perhaps. And certainly Eric felt that or fit that description as well. But you know, as we started talking, he started loosening up. You know how people are sometimes. I don't know if you can see me on camera, but he was like this. had his arms folded, his legs crossed. Yeah, I mean, he was just as tight as could be, and he had a big frown on his face. And, and I took one look at him and I thought, this guy is one tough customer. And so, of course, I did what I meet whenever I meet people who are like that. I started to sing. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't start to sing. Instead, I started to tell him a little bit about what my vision for that company was and what we had going for us. The vision for the company was really to take science that was not very well known, but that was necessary for the well-being of every single person on Earth, and spread that word through normal, everyday individuals and help them achieve financial security by sharing that and taking that load upon themselves and helping to spread the word about our company. And that if we did that, I assured him that we would be there lockstep, arm in arm, to support him. I told him, we'll never tell you a lie. Whatever we say we do, that we're going to do, we will do. And if I say that we can't do something, we won't do it. And I told him that I was much more about the steak and not so much about the sizzle, which is kind of the opposite of some marketing companies where they have a lot of sizzle. But if you really dig down a little bit, an inch or two underneath, you find, oh, there's really not a lot of substance there. And I just said, what you see is what you get. Well, he started loosening up a little bit, especially when I told him at that time about a product that reduced something called oxidative stress. He didn't know what oxidative stress was. He'd heard of free radicals, I think. He'd certainly heard of antioxidants. And so I told him about the research at that time that had shown that antioxidants through food were simply an inefficient way to reduce the damage caused by free radicals. That we have free radicals that affect us every single day. And did you know that there is one proven way to avoid the damage caused by free radicals? One is temporary and one is permanent. The temporary way to drastically reduce the amount of free radicals that you generate in your body is to hold your breath and don't eat, okay? But you can't do that for very long. That's a temporary way, okay? The permanent way is simply to die. Once you die, you produce no more free radicals. So those are not really good options, right? So we are going to produce free radicals, these unstable molecules that are caused, frankly, by breathing and by eating food and metabolizing that food. It's just a necessary part of what our bodies do. And so, unfortunately, the cumulative damage of those free radicals is called oxidative stress. The oxidative part comes just from the same word that oxygen comes from, that oxidation comes from. And if you look at a rusty nail or a brown banana or an apple that you just took a bite out of and put on the counter and it turned brown, that's oxidation in process. And that's what happens to our cells. And so I said, this oxidative stress, Eric, is bad. It's linked to over 200 diseases, and it's the primary cause of aging. And I said, we've got a product that drastically reduces the oxidative stress in people down to the level of a newborn baby. And he was pretty impressed. So he joined and he rose to the top of the company along with Trish. Well, now fast forward. And if some of this sounds familiar to you, it's because it is familiar. We took that same scientist, Dr. Joe McCord, who had developed that earlier product. And at that time, guess what? We weren't talking about NERV2. Dr. McCord was not talking about NERV2. Do you know why? Because he didn't know about NERV2 yet. He knew about oxidative stress. What he knew was the benefits of the product, meaning that it lowered oxidative stress and the damage caused by oxidative stress. You know how they measured it. You might remember this. They measured oxidative stress by measuring something called T-bars. And T-bars is really a measurement of DNA damage in our bodies. You know, when our cells die, and our cells die for a couple of reasons, really two primary reasons. There are some cells that are designed just to have a limited lifetime. Okay, they are, for example, they might be some of my hair follicle cells. Okay, mine in particular were designed not to last for very long. Other cells, however, do not have a built-in expiration date, and in fact, they were originally intended by nature to keep going, these perpetual motion machines. Now, when they die, you know why they die? They die because of choices that we make, our lifestyle choices, whether the type of food that we eat, the type of things that we drink, whether we exercise, and that cumulative damage that we cause ourselves, and also combined with oxidative stress, is what causes damage to those cells. And finally, they are so damaged they can't function and they die. That's called cell apoptosis, when cells die. And since all we are really is just a bunch of cells, you can see that if enough cells start dying quickly enough, guess what? That means we start aging and our body doesn't function as well. And so they can measure that cell death because they can measure the amount of DNA particles and cellular particles by these T-bars to say, okay, we can tell that this damage is occurring. And obviously, if you can reduce that, that's a good thing. So Dr. McCord knew that they could reduce it. He just didn't know how yet. So fast forward, when we started actives, he not only knew that NRF2, this transcription factor, this specialized protein that our body makes, is responsible for that cascade of benefits in terms of causing our antioxidant enzymes like catalase and superoxide dismutase to do a much better job at cleaning up and reducing that damage caused by free radicals than eating a truckload of blueberries or drinking. I know a lot of people think that the whole red wine thing would be a good thing to do, but even then, even if you really, really like red wine, you're not going to be able to drink enough of it to make a difference in your oxidative stress. So what you need to do is have the body's own defenses be engaged. And what he had done, and it found itself in the form of what we call genomics, he'd created a new formula that was 10 times more effective than that formula that I first told Eric Albrechtsen about when he was mad and ornery meeting me in 2009 in San Diego. So the science kept going, and Eric kept going, and he proved a couple of things. He proved that when I said that we had a product and science that was necessary for everyone to have, I was telling the truth. When we got back together again with actives, I told him the same story. I said, Eric, we have science that everyone needs to have, and you should share it with other people. And guess what? We learned some things along the way. You know that commission plan that we put together for this other company? Well, we have put it on steroids. We've made it better. It's going to pay out more. It's going to pay out at a higher percentage. We're going to allow people to participate in pools to a level that they never have before. And we're also going to introduce some other products that are not one bit behind in terms of the level of science and the level of necessity and benefit that they provide. Because frankly, you know, I would hate to be put on a desert island and said, choose one of the trifecta. You can only have one. I'm not sure where I'd go. I mean, on the one hand, you have genomics, right? And it's been proven that it causes NRF2 to increase, to last longer in the mitochondria of every single one of our cells than any other NRF2 activator out there. And in so doing, it modulates. And when we use the word modulate, what modulate really means is to adjust in the appropriate fashion. That's what modulate means, okay? Put it at the right level. And so, you hear of some things out there that are called immune system boosters. Well, guess what? Some people don't want and should not have their immune system boosted. If they're already suffering from an autoimmune disorder, like lupus, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, that they already have a very overactive, hyped up immune system. And so you might say, well, should people like that take genomics? Absolutely. Why? Because we don't boost the immune system in their case. In their case, we even it out. We modulate it to the level it should be. Now, on the other hand, people that have a compromised immune system, and they're catching every virus, they're catching every illness under the sun, and they just can't seem to get better. They're always fighting something. They need it also, because what's going to happen in their case is that NRF2 is going to affect those 3,000 survival genes that are connected to the immune system and inflammatory cytokines, and it's going to affect them in a different fashion. And so it's kind of like a smart molecule, okay, a smart protein. It acts naturally to affect those genes and put them in the position that the body needs them to be in. Now, you might say, well, wow, well, why would you have any doubt that that would be the product that you'd choose? Well, because then there's link, right? And we know that link with butyric acid is specially formulated to provide the benefits of this short chain fatty acid produced by friendly bacteria in our colon in a way that we just can't get through food sources and otherwise, and that our body needs because we start producing less and less of this as we get older. So why is it so important? Well, a lot of you know that butyric acid is very interesting. Did you know that almost all the cells in our body have one chief food source that they like? Do you know what it is? It's glucose, sugar. They like sugar, which is why they like carbs and things. It's an energy source. Did you know that there's one type of cell in our bodies that its preferred food source is not glucose? Its preferred food source is butyric acid. And those cells are the endothelial cells that line our gut, that line our entire gastrointestinal system, and which with the intention of keeping good things in our digestive system and keeping bad things from getting out and into our system that will cause an overreactive inflammatory response. And you've heard me talk about inflammation a couple of times here tonight. Inflammation is the classic good news, bad news situation. The good news is it's a key part of our immune system. The inflammatory response is meant to keep invaders, things that shouldn't be in our body, out. It's also meant to help us take it easy, cause the body to take it easy when it's injured. There's a reason that when we sprain our ankle and it swells up, that's the body's, and it's painful, the body does that to say, if you keep doing this, if you keep doing what you just did on this ankle, you're gonna make it worse and worse. So I'm gonna cause it to be inflamed, puffy, and sore to force you to take it a little bit easier. So those things are all good parts of the inflammatory response. However, there's lots of things that can cause the inflammatory response to get totally off kilter. Again, chief of those things is our diet. You know, one thing that really increases the inflammatory response in our body is sugar, especially processed sugar. And so if we did one thing tonight, and I've got a sweet tooth, I'm a very bad example of this. I will sometimes go out and I know my wife's listening tonight. She said, well, you better not tell them about that ice cream that you eat, all those things, because you know why? It's bad for you. It actually causes a dramatically increased inflammatory level and a dramatically decreased immune response. It's like saying, you know what? I think what I'll do on a pitch dark night is just for about 15 minutes, drive without my headlights. Would that be very wise? Well, you know, when we eat much processed sugar, that's kind of what we're doing. We're saying, you know what? I'm just going to kind of turn my immune system off for a while. It'll be all right. Nothing will happen. And because as I enjoy this big, huge bowl of ice cream, and that's really what's happening. So to counterbalance these bad decisions that we make, butyric acid helps to reduce the inflammation that's in our gastrointestinal system. It helps to cause the cellular junctions to stay tight so that it doesn't loosen up, or worse, get holes in it so that particles of food and pathogens and bacteria enter into our system and cause all types of havoc within our body. You've heard of leaky gut syndrome. Well, that is a very literal description of what happens when, through diet, oxidative stress, inflammation, and other things, those junctions become bigger and bigger. And so they're actually holes, and that's causing all types of inflammatory responses and tremendous agony for those who are suffering from that condition, much like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, any of these things that are gut related. Guess what? People are going to benefit from butyric acid. By the same token, even if you don't have those acute systems, most of us don't have, especially as we get older, sometimes our digestive system doesn't function very well. Do you guys know what the #1 product for decades now sold in drugstores is? Any idea? I'm not going until somebody raises their hand. No, I'm just kidding. Kathleen, you got an idea? What is it?
Antacid?
Close. That's actually getting right up there. And actually, it's very related. What's very related to that is #1 is fiber. fiber products, okay? And so with people who need fiber products, they often need antacid products too, right? Because their digestive system is just not operating correctly. And so don't get me wrong, fiber is great. Do you know the main purpose of fiber is not even what people think it is, okay? People think, well, it's good for you to get your digestive system going because it, with this insoluble fiber, it kind of cleans everything out and helps you get more regular in your bathroom habits. Okay, that's fine. The better reason to take fiber though, is because all these things that we call probiotics? Well, probiotics are just simply good bacteria. Pro means good, biotics means bacteria. These are good bacteria, okay? But guess what probiotics or bacteria eat? They eat prebiotics, all right? And prebiotics are things like inulin, all right? Inulin is also found in our Link product. It's things like this fiber, the various forms of fiber, and by consuming the prebiotic or its food, its byproduct are things like short chain fatty acids such as butyric acid. And so and so having that healthy microbiome, that healthy gut, is really great for a properly operating digestive system, so that you don't feel heavy, bloated, so that you have more regular bathroom habits, and of course, acute things like I mentioned earlier, Crohn's and irritable bowel syndrome, acid reflux, all those kind of things. Well, that seems to make sense when you talk about gut health. And then you remember that the gut is also called the second brain, and they've shown this tremendous connection to our actual brain. And that's why we call it Link. Because what often we don't realize is what science has proven is the connection, not only with gut health and things like those diseases I mentioned earlier, but also things that we normally associate with the brain, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and autism and depression and addiction. All of these things, we think, well, those are primarily brain functions or brain problems. Not so fast. Science is increasingly showing that many of those things have a strong origin in the gut. So as we increase gut health, and as we increase, as we make sure that our gut, the inflammation in the gut has gone down, that we're creating a healthy microbiome, guess what happens? The signals being sent, the neurotransmitters, the chemicals that the brain uses, about 85% of which, by the way, are made in the gut. So if your gut health is not good, guess what? You're producing less and less neurotransmitters. What is one of the main neurotransmitters that keeps us going when times get tough? Dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that gives a feeling of pleasure. It's why we eat. It's why we do a lot of pleasurable activities, because it releases dopamine. Okay. Now sometimes it gets hijacked. Dopamine production can get hijacked by things that are addictive, like food, like drugs, like pornography, like gambling. There are things that kind of hijack that dopamine center sometimes to give a pleasurable feedback signal in a negative fashion. So what we want to do is we want to have a healthy balance of neurotransmitters, and the gut comes into play there. By the way, did you know that neurons are brain cells? We have them in both the gut and in our brain, and butyric acid plays a very key role in producing new brain cells. And that's a pretty new concept. Until about 20, 25 years ago, scientists and doctors didn't think that beyond a certain age, our body even produced any more brain cells. I'm really glad that that was proven wrong. As I get older and older, I want to have more brain cells, not less brain cells. So I can tell you that now we're saying, wow, with all of these great things, I guess Link really is a worthy candidate to be chosen if you can only choose one. Well, again, not so fast. Here we go with Optimend, okay? Optimend contains tetrahydrocurcumin. Well, what's so important about that? Well, we know that turmeric and curcumin has been used for thousands of years, first in Ayurvedic medicine. Ayurvedic or Indian medicine has used turmeric as a anti-cancer agent, as an anti-pain agent, as a digestive agent, as an antibacterial agent, all types of things that in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, turmeric is used. And as some of you have heard, Dr. Rish Patel, who's a pain management specialist and is also on our scientific advisory board, he not only uses Optimend in his practice, but you've often heard him tell the story about growing up. He's of Indian American, he's of Indian extraction, he's Indian American. And he said every little boy or girl whenever they have a sore throat, is usually told, I think kids that have a European background are often told, go get some vitamin C, go take some vitamin C, right? If you have Indian background, it's like, go make some turmeric tea, go make some turmeric milk and drink that, because they know of the benefits. But modern science has said, yeah, there really is something to that turmeric, to that curcumin, which is the same thing, comes from the same plant. But there is kind of a downside. The molecule is so big that you've got to eat a ton of this stuff to get any benefit whatsoever. Science also shows that when the body starts to break down curcumin, it breaks it down into metabolites, or kind of subsections, if you will, subcomponents. And the one that seems to be most responsible for decreasing pain and inflammation is a metabolite or portion of curcumin called tetrahydrocurcumin. So when you see that on the Optimum bottle, you can say, we started with what the body's ultimately going to turn curcumin into anyway. So we're much more efficient. We're getting right to the source. But even then, it's still a molecule that's a little bit bigger than the body's able to easily absorb. Now, if you go to Costco, if you go into a health food store or someplace else, you can find dozens, online probably hundreds of turmeric or curcumin products. And most of them acknowledge the fact that this is a large molecule and hard to absorb. And so they'll talk about their delivery system, that they have liposomal, well, they wrap it in a fat, okay, a lipid, or that they have added something called black pepper extract, sometimes under the brand name Bioperin. Don't be fooled. The absorbability of those products is dwarfed by what we have through the Siloc DexKey system, in which every single molecule of tetrahydrocurcumin is forced into a molecule of cyclodextrin, which is basically a starch. And that technology was taken from the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry. What makes it patentable, however, is the addition of an amylase, okay, which is a substance that says, okay, it's one thing to kind of shrink wrap this molecule so it can get through the system. It's another thing to protect it through the digestive acids and everything, get it through the system. But now that it's in the duodenum or in the small intestine, ready to be metabolized, if we leave it in that state, guess what? It's going to keep on going, and it's just going to go out, go into the toilet, and you're not going to get any benefit from it. That's where the amylase comes in. The DEX key, it is the key that unlocks the trap and allows that molecule of tetrahydrocurcumin that's on the inside to release and be metabolized. That's why people who take Optimend notice the benefits of it so much faster than other turmeric or curcumin products. By the way, if someone says, well, Bioperin, black pepper extract does the same thing. No, it really doesn't. What it does in order to try and increase bioavailability is it creates micro lacerations in your gut, okay? That's kind of like if somebody says, you know what, in order to increase the ability for lotion to be absorbed with your skin, what we recommend that you do is take a razor blade and make a bunch of tiny cuts in your skin so that that lotion can get in a little bit easier. That's what black pepper extract does to your gut, okay? So if anybody ever tries to sell you on the benefits of black pepper extract, don't buy it. It's not the way to go. And so here we go. Here we have them. We have a link. I've got my props. We've got Optimum. We've got genomics. You know, at that other company, or today, I had an experience that was very similar to what I had with that other company. There was a very successful cardiologist who joined the company, and he was very, he really loved the effect that the NRF2 technology and reducing oxidative stress had upon people that were suffering from heart disease and other things. So he recommended it to his patients, and he became a very successful distributor. And it got to the attention of the CEO of the cardiology group that he was a member of. And he was giving him a hard time and saying, you can't do that. So he asked me to fly out and meet with the CEO of this cardiology group. And this guy was a lot like Eric Albrechtsen, same thing. He was having nothing. He's like, man, if it's an MLM, there can be nothing good about this, because if it was any good, it'd be in another channel. All right. So I walked him through the science. And again, like Eric, his posture got a little bit more relaxed. He listened to the science. He listened to the benefits that had been clinically proven. And then you know what he said to me? At the end, he said, you know what? I just wish you weren't selling it in MLM. He wanted to dismiss it simply because of the channel that it was in. But can I tell you something? That if we had not changed channels that product was available in, number one, that company would have gone out of business well before millions of people got the benefits. You would never, ever have heard the name Dr. Joe McCord. Nobody on this call would have heard that name if we had not gone into network marketing. If we're not into network marketing now and had the opportunity and the ability to share the story of oxidative stress, of NRF2 technology, of the benefits of butyric acid, and why you should take our tetrahydrocurcumin and not some, stomach lacerating turmeric product out there. If we'd not gotten into this channel, guess what? None of you would be on this call. None of your friends, if you have anyone that's received any benefit from our products whatsoever, they would not have done it. It would be like going, you remember the show Back to the Future? They changed it and they showed the picture, and it's like, hey, my brother's gone, where'd he go? Well, you changed history. And if that had happened, if we changed it, literally millions of people would not have the benefits of this science in their lives. So when people say, I wish you weren't network marketing, how can you be in network marketing? I say, listen, this is the channel. This is the only channel that really offers us the opportunity to share this story, to explain the benefits, to take the time. You can't expect a Walmart clerk to tell you this story. You can't expect a GNC clerk to tell you this story. You don't have time to read it. You don't have a label big enough to put it on the bottle, and it's just not efficient. It will not happen. Now, fast forward from there to saying, well, what about the business opportunity? Is that a product? Yeah, it is a product. Some of you know that I used to be the CEO of a large retail diet company. We sold a diet, we're probably, I think, really undoubtedly the largest diet company in the world. And we had the most popular diet product in the world. We did over $500 million a year, okay? And we spent over $100 million a year in advertising. And for a very easy message, take this, lose weight. It was not complicated, all right? But we had to spend $100 million to do that. Can you imagine how much we'd have to spend to tell people the story, to take the time, to buy the media, to tell them about NRF2, to tell them about butyric acid? There's no way, especially a startup company couldn't do it. At the same time, my wife just, I was on the phone with Anna as I was driving down. She said, I just spent $80 putting gas into my car, and my gas tank wasn't even empty. Anybody else worried about the prices of gas? The prices of everything else? It's one thing, there are things in life called unintended consequences. And so when gas prices go up, some people might think, well, that's just the price we have to pay for this and this and this. Well, yes, it is. But guess what? Everything that we consume has to be shipped. Everything has to be developed. And so those gas prices are now spread across every single thing that we buy. Has now a component, and that's the primary driving force in the inflation that we're experiencing in the United States. And what they say about the United States economy, that when the United States catches a cold, the rest of the world catches pneumonia. So when our economy starts going down, everybody else's economy goes a lot worse. So there are lots of people out there who not only need the benefits of products that will strengthen their immune system, that will reduce inflammation, that will slow down the aging process, that will deal with the daily pain that they're suffering from, that will help them moisturize their skin and look younger with our Amora product, will help them lose weight and get more energy with our Aero product. But increasingly, the other answer that they need is to their question, how am I going to make this paycheck last? I've got more month than I have paycheck, and I need to have some extra money coming in. That's increasingly something that people are worried about. And yeah, they can go out, they can spend $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 on a franchise and buy themselves a bad job. They can be an Uber driver and exchange time for money and hope that they can make up the difference and pay the gas prices. There's other side gigs out there, but I'm telling you, there's not too many side gigs out there where you can join a team that successfully has built companies like this in the past, that has already demonstrated an ability to build markets in Mexico and in Japan and the United States and in Peru and in Bolivia and in Colombia, that has cutting edge scientific research behind it, that's attracted a stellar advisory board filled with neurosurgeons, pain management specialists, doctors, admirals, all types of people who would never, ever join our company if they didn't know and recognize the importance of these products in their lives and the lives of the people they care about. So I mentioned, and I've been going on and on. Sorry, I get talking about actives and I get a little bit excited, all right? Because it really is something. When I was talking to someone today about it, I said, you know, actives, the name actives is really the best explanation of what we're all about. We truly do have products that can activate wellness in your life at the very genetic level. Think about that. Did you ever think 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that you'd be part of a company that had science that when you took this product, it acted on the DNA of every single mitochondria in every single cell of your body? That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. You are now hooked. You're now 1 degree of separation from the world's foremost authority on free radical biology, Dr. Joe McCord. You are 1 degree of separation removed from the doctor who created the NFL's concussion protocol. That's now not only used in the NFL, but is used in the NCAA, is used in high school football, is used in Pop Warner football, and Dr. Joe Maroon, okay? And who takes our products? You are 1 degree of separation removed from Admiral Matt Winter, who recognized when I first talked to him what I was talking about in NERF2 activation. Do you know how he knew that? I mean, Admiral Winter's a really smart guy. But guess what one of his postings was in the Navy? He was the head of the Office of Naval Research, which funds literally hundreds of studies every year to the tunes of millions and billions of dollars. And he remembered some research that the Office of Naval Research had sponsored with my former company regarding NERF2. And he said, are you telling me that that you now have a product that's better than that? And I said, yes. He said, show me the science. Showed him the science. He said, okay, I'm in. And so so you're all 1 degree of separation, ½ degree of separation. In fact, maybe less than that, because many of you have been on calls with those members of our advisory team. You've heard this past Saturday, you heard from Sinead Irwin, who has her own functional medicine nutritional practice. You heard her talk about the benefits that her patients and her clients are seeing by utilizing the products. So if there's ever any doubt, if somebody says to you, are you kidding me? You join a network marketing company, don't you know that those are all snake oil products? They're all high-priced versions of things that you can buy in a health food store. Don't you know that nobody makes any money? And I can't believe that you fell for that again. And then that's your best friend telling you that, let alone somebody who you don't know. You can turn to them and say, have you ever heard of this guy named Matt Winter? Let me tell you about him. You ever heard about this guy named Dr. Joe McCord? Let me tell you about him. Let me tell you about the millions, literally millions of lives that have been changed from a financial standpoint as well as a health standpoint, because this company decided to do something that some people thought was stupid, and that was going to network marketing. And you know what? I also know people whose lives have been changed financially because they did something that other people thought was stupid, and they went into network marketing. Now, as you jump into this, okay, you might be like somebody who feels like they need to lose some weight, okay? We all want to get a little bit trimmer. We all want to get a little in better shape, right? And so we go out and we say, oh, you know, I just exercised. I just walked for 20 minutes, came back, got on the scale. Oh man, I didn't see much difference. Should we give up at that point just because the first 20 minutes didn't produce the results that we want? No. And the same thing is going to be true here. You know, don't judge yourself by the early results. Judge yourself by the trajectory that you're on. Are you on the right trajectory, going in the right direction? Okay? And give yourself, if nothing else, follow the 2-minute rule. If it's too hard to just jump into this and give it all the time and effort that mentally you'd like to, but physically you're not sure you can devote to, it's the classic case of the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Do it for 2 minutes. You can do anything for 2 minutes, all right? Make a list and surround yourself with those things that remind you of why you got into this in the first place. Put bottles of the products around to remind you, number one, to take it. Because if you don't take it, I can guarantee you it will not work. If you do take it, I will guarantee you it will work. All right. Those are two guarantees you can take to the bank. And that's true not only of you, but everyone you talk to. And just do it for 2 minutes a day. And then what you probably find is if you do it for 2 minutes a day, that might get into the unbelievable amount of 5 minutes a day. And that might even yield to something else. And as you do that every single day, you'll find that just as you keep walking that 20 minutes a day, yeah, at the end of the week, guess what? You lost half a pound. Okay, it's not the 20 pounds you want to lose, but you'll get there. You're on the right trajectory and you're going the right direction. And so it's easy to beat ourselves up when we get all excited, jump into something. It just doesn't happen overnight. But I will ask you this: what worthwhile thing that you've ever done in your life has ever occurred overnight? Probably hasn't. Okay, and so we are with you all the way. The one thing I can tell you, when we talk about the Active family, we mean it. Okay, we take that just as seriously as we do the science of our products. We take that just as seriously as we do our compensation plan and the success guide. Everything that we do is focused upon helping you succeed. And so we urge you to jump in with both feet, link arms with the people that brought you in the first place, share it with other people, and get on that trajectory. If that trajectory is just, did you know that if you were a pilot and you were starting out in Los Angeles and you're going to New York, and if you move your trajectory just about 3 degrees, okay, which isn't, you wouldn't even notice it. But what you'll do, you'll have a bunch of surprise passengers at the end of the flight, because when you land, you'll be landing in Washington, D.C. You won't be landing in New York City. And all you did was move about 3 degrees off of where you're supposed to go. And I can tell you that may sound like a negative thing, but it also works the other way. If you move your life in just 3 degrees, you'll be on the trajectory of where you want to go, instead of continually heading down the path that you're not satisfied with. So just do it. It doesn't have to be a wholesale change. It doesn't have to be 180 degrees. Just move it a couple of degrees and stick with it. So that's all for tonight. We're glad to have you here. Stay tuned for more announcements. We urge you to come to make plans to come to Salt Lake City July 15th and 16th, where you can meet a lot of people that are associated. They're on this call tonight and they're part of the company. And some of our advisory board members and others, we'll have some other special guests there. And we urge you to stay tuned for that. We also will have our regularly scheduled corporate update tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I'll be traveling back from Phoenix, so I won't be on that call, but that's okay. You will have had enough of me tonight anyway. But we'll take a couple of minutes. We have a little bit of time left. And if there's any questions that some of you have, let's feel free to answer them right now. Anybody have any questions? All right then. Noemi, do you have a question?
No, I was thinking of what to ask, but actually no, I just want to thank you. You just gave me another another aha moment. Thank you, David.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you. And
I have a couple of guests. Well, not guests, they already enrolled. I don't know if they have any questions. Marcela and Gabby.
I'm here.
Girls. Don't be shy.
Hi, Marcela. Good to see you.
Good to see you, David. I just want to say that I'm so glad I joined this call, and to thank you for this amazing presentation, everything. And I'm so glad that I joined this company. I'm so glad that I'm taking the products and that my whole family are taking the products.
Yay.
Yes, I am so grateful. So thank you very much, David.
You're welcome. We're very glad to have you with us tonight. That's for sure.
And David, we have one question on the chat from Patricia.
Yeah.
Are we going to put out guidance on our ways to use products for different issues?
That's an interesting one. Because we are what's called a dietary supplement in the United States and a similar designation in Mexico and other countries, we're quite limited in what we can say. We can't make claims about certain health conditions or disease claims. Even if true, even if there's tons of research, we can't do it because we're not approved as a drug. What we can do is we can talk about certain things that are called Now, some of you know I'm a lawyer, so this is going to sound very lawyer-like, as what are called structure function claims. So for example, we can say things like how we increase the body's production of NRF2, how we decrease oxidative stress. Now, I can tell you, if you have particular questions about whether oxidative stress or NRF2 is beneficial with a particular health condition, I would urge you to do a little bit of research yourself, okay? And what I mean by that is if you want to know if there's a link between oxidative stress and cancer, go to Google and just Google oxidative stress and cancer, oxidative stress and heart disease, the benefits of NRF2, the benefits of butyric acid and Crohn's disease. You can get a ton of information. And even though legally we can't provide that kind of information, I can tell you and that's the beauty of this. You don't have to believe a word I said tonight because the information's out there, and it will tell you that butyric acid is very beneficial for a whole variety of conditions. So it's difficult for us to go beyond that, and I'll have to urge you to go and connect those dots on your own. Does that make sense? Might not be a very that's a very lawyer-like answer, and I apologize for that, but that's where we're at. But we'll try to provide as much direction in that regard as we can.
And Scott just commented, how about a private Facebook group, which we do, there is a Facebook testimonial group that is ran by Aaron Kosmitz. It's called Actives Testimonials. So you guys can join that and see the testimonials that have been posted to that Facebook group.
You know, let me just make one comment about testimonials. Do you know the FDA and the FTC, they're both two regulatory bodies in the United States that govern us in the US, just like COFEPRIS is in Mexico. And regulatory bodies and governmental agencies hate testimonials, okay? And the reason that they hate testimonials is because sometimes they can be fabricated and people tell things say things that aren't really true. And so my own personal opinion about testimonials is if somebody, say Michael or Mary or Gabby or somebody comes up to me, Susie Boyd comes up to me and tells me about their experience in taking a certain product and the wonderful result that they had, I would never say that I didn't believe them and that they must be not telling the truth. I would totally believe them. But if the science wasn't there, I might not believe that it will apply to me. The good news about actives is that we not only have wonderful testimonials that people can choose to believe or not to believe, but they're absolutely, positively, 100% supported by the science. And so then you can take a lot of comfort to know that if someone else had this type of benefit, this type of result, then there's a very good chance that if you have a similar condition, you'll have a similar result. And that's where I think the power of testimonials can be very great. Any other questions out there, Angie?
No other questions on the chat. Any other questions that anyone would like to ask?
Well, let me finish up with telling you, I'm sorry, was there somebody?
No, go ahead, David.
Let me just finish up by telling you about an experience I had last night. So Coco invited me down to attend an event in Tucson. And some of you might not be old enough to know this person's name. Some of you might remember her, but her name is, I met a woman named Andrea Jaeger. And Andrea Jaeger was a very, very famous tennis player back in the early 80s and through the mid 80s. And what's interesting about her is that she became the #2 ranked woman in the world at the age of 16 years old. And she told the story about how she was beating so many of the top ranked women that many of them retired after losing to her, thinking, if I can't even beat a 16-year-old, what am I doing out here on the court? One of those was Billie Jean King. The very last match that Billie Jean King played was losing to Andrea Jaeger as a 16-year-old, 6-1, 6-1 in Wimbledon, okay? And so Andrea was a teenager. Her parents were were not poor, but didn't have a lot of money, so they couldn't even accompany her. I mean, it's a different world now. They didn't have the money to accompany her on her tennis trips. So as a 13-year-old, she went by herself to South Africa. Okay, as a 10-year-old representing the US World Junior team, she went by herself to Australia. Can you imagine putting your 10-year-old on a flight by with the team and say, hey, good luck in Australia. Hope it goes well for you. But as she was getting older, into her teen years, she noticed, she understood that a lot of teenagers and a lot of people were really suffering, and she wanted to help alleviate that suffering. And so she had gone out to a high school in New York City because she was in a tournament at Madison Square Garden. And she went out of high school because she had heard that there had been a group of a number of suicides from this particular high school, kind of a cluster. And she felt that she just wanted to see if she could do something to alleviate the suffering of that group of teenagers. Because after all, she was a teenager on her own, by herself. So she did, and the media got wind of it. And there was an article that appeared about her in the New York Times. The next day, she was called in to meet with the #1 ranked woman in the world. Remember, she was #2, and the president of the Women's Tennis Association. And she said, "Oh no, what have I done? Did I argue with the linesman too much on this particular call? Are they going to criticize me for this? What's it all about?" Here she is, a 17 or 18-year-old. They threw the paper at her that talked about how she went out to this high school and said, "You need to stop this." And she said, "What are you talking about? You can't have this. You're making us look bad." Because she had gone to them to try and set up a foundation that the Women's Tennis Tour would sponsor, and had been rejected several times. They said, "You can't do this. You need to choose. You either play tennis and don't do these type of philanthropic things, or you do that." Can you imagine that? It's a different world, and I'm happy to report that the Women's Tennis Association doesn't do that anymore. Well, fast forward, she said, as she walked away from that, she goes, "I'm going to leave this in God's hands. I'm going to just say, God, if you want me to play tennis, let me know. If you want me to walk away and do this, let me know." So a couple months later, she was over at the French Open on the center court at the French Open, leading 5 games to love, getting ready to serve, and her shoulder popped out of its socket. She couldn't continue. And she said, "At that moment, I knew I had my answer." God said, "You know what? I think I'd rather have you do this." And even though she underwent 7 shoulder surgeries, they could never get it. The surgeons were convinced that they could get it back, and just never did. And she said, "I tried to tell my parents. I tried to tell them, this is a God thing. This has nothing to do with you." So she has spent, she turned in all of her prize money, and she turned it in and she gave it away. And she talked about how her presents to her parents and to her family members got smaller and smaller, because she was making millions of dollars, okay, at the time that she was at her height in women's tennis. And then she was giving it all away, and she had less and less money. She's now devoted her life ever since then, for the past 40 years-ish, to children, and particularly children that have cancer. And when I talked with her about some of the benefits of our products and what we're doing, it was really an emotional experience. And I'm going to see if there's a way that we can help what she calls her Little Stars Foundation. But one way I know that we can help is that we can help people. Did you know that the cancer cells, for example, and we all have cancer cells in our bodies, they thrive in oxidatively stressed environments. So if we can do anything to decrease our risk of that or any other health disease or serious disease, we should do it, and we should help others do it as well. And that's why at Actives, it's much more than simply making money. But don't get me wrong, we're not a nonprofit. We want to make money as a company. We want you to make money, because we know that with money, you can do a lot of really good things to affect the lives of people in a very beneficial fashion, both for you and your family and your friends. But it's more than that. It's something that when you introduce this to somebody and they have had a tremendous health outcome, or you've helped them make a check where they've made an extra couple of $100 a month or $1,000 or whatever it is, that person will remember you. Their family will remember you, and you become part of that family's lore, part of that family's legacy. They'll remember when and where you introduce them to Actives, and they'll thank you for it. And that's that's really something. And I'm glad to be locked arms with people like you who take that type of thing seriously, because hey, the science behind our products is great. But the science behind our best product, which is you, is a lot higher. A much higher power was involved in that product, and I'm grateful for that. So thanks, everybody. It's great to be on the phone with you tonight. Look forward to seeing you again. If there's ever anything we can do to help out, let us know. Angie, back to you, and I think we're going to be doing the drawing, right?